Story time about how my family adopted me for the sickest reason ever. So I was 9 years old and I started to wonder if I was getting too old to be adopted, and I started to feel really unwanted until this lovely, lovely Caucasian family came to adopt me. I had a new brother, they lived in the suburbs, everything was going good. Until one day after they showed me around the house, they said, "All right, hop in the car, we're going to show you around the town." Now, as a 9-year-old, I genuinely don't really care what's around the town, but I did it anyway. After all, they were my new parents. So after we're driving for about 30 minutes, I noticed the area is starting to look more and more trashy. I was getting scared that they were going to drop me off and leave me abandoned somewhere. I didn't know what was going on. So we pull up next to this corner store where this man is standing outside the convenience store. He walks up to the window, he talks to them a little bit, and he looks at me and says, "Hi." I said, "Hi." He's like, "So we're going to be working together." Y'all, by working together, he meant he was going to be my... There was a lady who heard this and she was walking out of the convenience store. She ran up to the window with full concern and asked me how old I was. She took me out the car and later adopted me. Those people wanted me to pay off their credit card debt. Biggest wake-up call ever. Y'all, I'm not even gonna lie, I was a little bit on the whitewashed side, but it was only because of how society portrayed us if we acted the way we wanted to. So yeah, I acted everything but myself and I hung out with everybody but my people. So after white girl summer was over, school started up. And this new boy, Cameron, was coming to our school. He was definitely white and I was destined to get with him. I thought if I got with him, all my troubles would be gone away. And I would finally be seen the way that I want to. But that's not how it worked. Tell me why he noticed I was all up on his case. He invited me to his house because he wanted to get to know me. Y'all, I was geeking out. It was his birthday party, and when I tell you I was the only drop of color in there. So after we're partying and everything, he turns on some music and says, "Let's play Would You Rather." The first thing this dude says to his friend is, "Would you rather date a or someone who's 3 times your age?" I was sick to my stomach and I was so embarrassed. Everyone bust out laughing. Story time about how my mom gave me up for adoption. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about this at the end. So my mom was from the old days and she was always taught to find a rich man. She could be the lady, blah, blah, play her part. So she did just that. Long story short, she popped up pregnant, which was me. But after I was born, my dad wanted a DNA test because he realized I looked absolutely nothing like him and did not trust. DNA test came back and you guessed it, I was not his. My mom actually reconnected with an old friend from her childhood and you know the rest. My mom's husband was really controlling and made her feel worthless, and the guy she reconnected with made her feel like a real person and like she was worth something. So that's why that happened. So once her husband at the time found out about all this, he gave her an ultimatum. You can stay here, stay stable, and give her up for adoption, or you can keep her, get out, and go find your own life and start from zero. Now, my mom was not educated. She never got a degree. She never had a job. She has no type of training for the real world. So she was faced with a hard decision. Take me and go struggle for years to make a way for both of us, or give me up and hopefully I get a family that knows how to take care of me properly. I don't know how to feel about this. Story time about how I had to send my dogs on my neighbors. I had to send them on my neighbors, you know why? Because they tried me. So just so y'all know, I am, and so are my 2 daughters, and they are the opposite. So one day my daughters were playing outside minding their little black business, and our neighbors pull up. So the woman goes inside of the house and the man stays outside staring at my children like they are some lost animals. So he goes, "What are you guys doing outside?" Mind you, I'm in the kitchen, but the window is raised so I can hear everything. So they answer him, "Oh, we're just playing." And then he goes, "Man, you people really love being in the sun, don't you?" I had to pause my music and stop what I was doing to make sure he actually said that. My daughter then says, "I'm telling my mommy." This fool had the nerve to grab my child and tell her she ain't telling nobody nothing. This fool clearly didn't think I was listening. I walked out there with my ready to go K9. I said, "Let her go." He says, "Well, she tried to attack me." I'm like, "Something gonna attack you in a minute." He says, "If you can't control your daughter, then before you can finish, I'll let that dog go." Ironic how I let the dog on him. This story time is about the last time I saw my mother. This is sad, so go ahead and get your Kleenexes now. I was an only child and my mom was a single parent and we lived in Georgia. She got this new job as a bank teller at this bank by our house. She was excited when she got the call and they confirmed that she got the job. Her plan was to work there long enough to eventually become a manager. After she got confirmation that she would be working there, we celebrated. So boom, first day comes around and she sits me on the couch and she tells me about life. She was just going on and on about how you can do and be whatever you want to be. It doesn't matter if you're a felon. It doesn't matter if you're smart. If you think you're not, it doesn't matter. She says, "I don't care if it's just me and you until the end of the world. We're going to be okay." In my head, I was like, blah, blah, blah. I was 11 at this time, just so you know. So yeah, she goes to work and I go to school. So after about fourth period, I heard the bell in my class, ding, and they called me to the office. I asked why I was in the office and everyone looked scared to tell me. They told me that there was a robbery at my mom's bank, and unfortunately most people were, including my mom. I wish I cherished her more. Story time about how my psychotic grandma got my teacher fired. So this was a predominantly white school, and I believe my teacher was racist. So I'm going to name my teacher Mrs. Wilson. So Mrs. Wilson always made me sit at the back of the class, stand at the back of the line, and she never called on me when I raised my hand. When all the other white kids would get an answer right, she would always applaud them and give them candy, but when I did, she wouldn't do anything. So one day we had recess, and I was playing with these two white girls, and they started picking on me and making fun of my hair because I was black. So I went to go tell Mrs. Wilson, and she says, so I go to tell my teacher, Mrs. Wilson, and you would not believe what she said to me. So she goes, well, maybe you should try straightening your hair. Kids won't pick on you anymore. Now, I'm in 5th grade, not 1st, so I knew she was racist. But I am in 5th grade, so no lie, it did make me feel kind of bad about my hair. So I go the rest of the day feeling kind of bad, and when I get home, I tell my grandma, like for part 2. This is part 2 story time about how my crazy grandma got my teacher fired. Now, the reason my grandma was there was because my mom was in nursing school and I needed a babysitter. Now, since my grandma is from the racist days, she was not playing with this teacher. I came home and I told my grandma everything that happened and she was pissed. Other incidences have happened and we've called up there and they have done nothing about it. Like I said, a predominantly white and racist school. So my grandma gives me this strange advice and she says, you know, when people don't like you, do something nice for them. Then they will. So my grandma goes in the kitchen and she starts making chocolate chip cookies. I saw this one strange ingredient on the counter and I was like, okay. I asked her if I could have one when they were done, and for the first time she said no. So my grandma told me to bring that batch of cookies to my teacher and have her give her a call to tell her how she likes them. So the next day I bring the cookies to my teacher and she starts to eat on them in class. And like for part 3. Part 3 story time about how my grandma got my teacher fired. So like I said in part 2, I bought the batch of cookies to my teacher, Mrs. Wilson, and she starts to eat on them in class. Now I'm only in 5th grade, so I genuinely just thought my grandma made her a batch of cookies for some reason. So as I'm doing my work, I look up and I notice my teacher's like laying across her desk laughing at her phone in a weird way. So she's acting really weird and goofy. She grabs her phone and calls my grandma. So in the sloppiest, weird way, she tells her how much she loves those cookies. Then she tells our classroom we don't ever have to do homework again, and she's laughing hysterically. She starts taking her shoes off and undoing her hair and running around the classroom just acting crazy. Now, at this time, our door was open, so I'm pretty sure teachers heard. So the principal comes by our room to see what's going on in there. So at this point, my teacher is laying on the ground with no shoes on. My grandma put edibles in the... She was then fired for illegal substances. I had no more problems out of her.
Here's something fun. When you're in a long-term relationship, you'll often find yourself doing this thing with your partner where you'll say, when we have kids, I hope they have this trait of yours. And today my husband was like, I hope our kids will be as resilient and determined as you. When I was 11 years old, I got in a fight with my mum when she was picking me up from school, and I was being so rude that she wanted to teach me a lesson and scare me a little bit. So she said, you can find your own way home. Left me outside of my classroom, got in her car and drove off. Now, realistically, she was just doing the block and was going to come back and pick me up, hoping that I would be apologetic. But I wasn't. I was very stubborn and was like, I can find my own way home. And I decided to run home. I, in fact, sprinted from the school grounds and ran into a close family friend who offered to give me a lift, which I accepted, and I got home by my own means. Now, my mum did do the block and not only came back to me not being where she left me, but to one of my friends saying, yeah, I saw her get in the car with some weird guy. Imagining my mum's soul leaving her body that day is enough for me to not ever want kids, let alone kids like me.
Story time about how I had to beat my grandma's ass. So to give you a quick little backstory about my grandma was not innocent. She used to run the streets back in her day. So I wasn't that close to my grandma, and neither was my mom, but my mom would still try to help her out from time to time and give her money. So one day, my dumb grandma and her dumb old friends decided to go rob a bunch of people. Now, of course, they old asses get caught, and my mother has to bail them out. So after my mom gets her from the jail, she's going on the whole time in the car like, you should have given me more money. So they're arguing and everything. And my mom's like, I don't understand why you're complaining. I always help you out when you ask me. my grandma feels like she shouldn't have to ask because she's her mother. So we're bringing my grandma back to her house, and as soon as we pull in the driveway, she gets out of the car and slams the door and goes inside. So as me and my mom are walking up the stairs to get inside, my grandma opens the door with a pistol. She's threatening to shoot her if she doesn't give her more money. Like for part 2. Story time about how I had to beat my own grandma's ass. So like I said in part 1, that old ass lady pulled out a pistol on my goddamn mama. Now, mind you, we are in the hood, so seeing pistols is not a big thing to most people in that neighborhood. Long story short, nobody called the cops, so we had to handle it ourselves. So I'm trying to calm my grandma down, and then she aims it at me. That's when my mom lost it. So she tries to grab the gun, and my grandma was not feeling that. So with my grandma's free hand, she swings on my mom, hitting her in the face. Now this was some ghetto ass shit. So my mom and grandma are on the ground fighting like some ghetto ass hood rats. And I didn't want to have to fight my grandma, but she started putting the gun to my mom's head. So I get on top of my grandma and I start whooping that ass. Because at this point, I was convinced she was actually going to shoot her. So I'm kicking her old ass in the back and dragging her off by her gray ass hair. As soon as I got them separated, I called the police, got her old ass locked up, and no, we did not bail her out this time.